Well, Leland Live Talk 99.5. Here we go again with what should be a pretty wild show today with so much in the news, so much stuff in the news. I'm going to start here at home because the weather's the thing. Even if the snow fight that's going on, the snowball fight between the meteorologists over whether or not we're going to get any accumulation here in Birmingham, it's funny to watch this go on online. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the cold, man. I've got bad news for you tonight. We had the cold blast last night. We've got another one Friday night, a third one on potentially Sunday night, and then I was looking at these long range computer models. We've got two more after Sunday night between now and the end of the month. Some of these models go out 10 days and go much further out. So two more snaps of deeply cold weather, and the last two could be the biggest and coldest ones yet. So winter, sure enough. We're paying for all those 70-degree breaks that we had during that time. So we'll be keeping up with that and updating you on the forecast. Speaking of the snow fight, they're not really battling each other, but online these battling opinions about what these computer models mean. And to add just dirty air to the whole discussion are these amateur meteorologists that are spitting out maps that aren't legit. And then you've got the professionals here in town leaning on one model run versus another. I think we're starting to get some consensus, though. Nothing of late seems to look like we're really going to get anything serious, if at all, here in the Birmingham metro or north central Alabama. But we'll, of course, wait and see what they're saying by tomorrow. All of it can change on a dime or shift here or there. For the most part, if there is a consensus on it, it looks like it's building toward maybe being an event where it's more in Georgia, sort of central Georgia and southeast Alabama down around Dothan, maybe even the Florida Panhandle, more of a chance of snow than we would have sometime on Sunday or Monday. So anyway, that stuff in the forecast. You notice I got my AJ. You notice hey, it's time for the AJ cam. Notice I've got my jacket on here in the studio.
I see.
I forgot to preheat this place. I was working outside of here till about 15 minutes before the show.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't turn the heat up fast enough, man, and it was cold when I got in here. So I may do the whole show this way.
You don't have heat in there? I thought you had.
No, I do. I've got it insulated, but it takes it a while to heat up, and it is so cold outside.
Yeah. How cold is it, Leland?
It's so cold. I saw a Somali guy with his hands in his own pocket. I stole that. That's the oldest joke in the world. Now, but yeah, man. Here we go. So I'm going to put my hands in my pockets and sit here until we warm up and keep this thing going. Now, look, you and I've done shows outside where it was 100 degrees, and we've done shows outside in the cold, but I'm indoors, and it's still chilly up in here.
Yeah.
We'll catch up here in a minute.
I'm just glad that they decided to keep the heat on in this building because, they try to save money. And there'll be times it'll be freezing outside, and they're like, well, we're trying to conserve energy, we're trying to be environmental. Like, bro, I am freezing my butt off.
No, it's called cheap. What they used to be, it used to be called environmental. Before, in the 70s and 80s, we called it being cheap.
Yes.
Now, the truth is that building is a monster. It's a huge building, and it's got an older heating and air system. And I thought about that when I came into this cold studio here. I thought it's like this back at the station sometimes, because when they have to flip the system during the year when the weather keeps changing, in other words, they sort of flip it into winter mode, and if it goes into if it's 70 degrees outside, we're just going to be boiling. But then in the spring, but when they try to flip it back to the air conditioning, it just takes a while for it, because they can't just keep going back and forth. There's no they've got do you know about the thermostats on the wall? Those are complete lies.
Oh yeah. Those things don't work.
It's like those hotels where you ever checked in a hotel and you just keep messing with it. It's like, nah, the hotel's got it set the way they want it.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't adjusting nothing. They just want you to feel empowered. They want you to feel like you're making a difference, like you're protesting out in the streets of Minneapolis and you're stopping ICE with your army of pudgy lesbians. That's not really going to happen. No, not at all. That which segues right into what I really need to talk about today. Lord, I guess I'll start in Minnesota, because we've got the big picture, actual legit stuff that really affect our lives. And before I get into too much of this, because it's enraging, some of the comments I have today are pretty fierce toward those people, especially that governor, man. He crossed the line last night. I haven't seen, I don't know that the country's seen since the 1960s in this country, but the truth is I'm watching Fox News because I'm going to be real with y'all. This is really good television, and they know it. It keeps eyes on screen. You don't really do it in a deceptive way when you're in television. You're not saying, we're going to go and deceive the public and exaggerate the scene. But you do go to the scene, okay? And when you go to the scene, my way of expressing it back in, especially back in the days when I worked in television, is the TV camera is like a little peephole in your door. You can't show scope with television coverage. You can't. Nowadays we have drone footage that might put things in perspective. And so it would frustrate me. We'd go to show a hurricane and try to cover that. Well, it's miles of damage. It's just widespread, and you can't really convey with your little peephole to the world exactly what's going on, but you can zoom in on some specifics to try to tell the story. And in a way, that's what Fox is doing today. They've got a live reporter down in the middle of a scrum that has popped up between some losers and the federal officials who've been left on their own by the political leadership to defend themselves. And in the middle of that scrum, it looks like the whole country's about to descend into civil war. But you could be riding around parts of Minneapolis right now and not even know this is going on. The only place it's going on in a lot of ways is at that intersection and on TV. Because in reality, if you just want to be calm about the whole thing, and that's what we're generally getting from the White House and other places, in reality, we're not seeing this kind of stuff in Louisiana, where there was an ice surge, in Memphis, where there was an ice surge. We've had ice surges in every state in the country. We saw some skirmishes in, I think it was New Jersey to begin with, and there was some stuff in Chicago. But eventually the Chicago police came out and helped provide calm and peaceful streets so that the two bodies, the police in Chicago's, that chief came out with no uncertain terms saying, if you assault a person with a badge, you've committed a crime, and he wasn't going to stand for it, state, federal, whatever. It's just wrong, and it's a crime. And so, but now we are in a different petri dish. We've got a governor who's on one hand vilifying the federal government, outright lying last night. And I'm not going to insult you by playing his stupid speech that he made, but just making up his own facts, exaggerating consequences, and making the thing worse. And so on one hand, he inflames the emotions of these gigantic losers. By the way, when I was a kid, I used to watch, y'all remember the claymation, was it Frosty the Snowman or one of those two? Rudolph. It was Rudolph. Remember Rudolph? And they had the Land of the Misfit Toys. I always thought that was at the North Pole. I just realized it was actually in Minneapolis the whole time. I didn't know. They both have snow. I was fooled. Maybe they just shot it there and used the people of Minneapolis as extras. But these people are just the weirdest people. They're the most annoying people that live on our planet right now. All of them. It is just nothing but a mess out there. And I've got so many sound bites to play for you as we get the show started today. And so let's go back to Walz for just a minute. And I'm going to say, this may sound strong, but I mean every word of this. If Tim Walz is not removed from his duties as governor of that state, principally by the people of that state, then the American left owes George Wallace an apology, because he is doing nothing short of what happened here in our own state back in the 1960s. There were federal laws, federal protections for people, and Alabama decided it was not going to participate. Well, it wasn't subject to the federal government's jurisdiction, and it could do what it wanted, and it did. And, we know 100 years before that, our state seceded from the Union. Walz has done everything but secede the state of Minnesota right now. He has inflamed the situation while also talking about peace. We got to do so peacefully. But he's still calling these agents Gestapo. He's saying people are being kidnapped. No one's being kidnapped. He's saying windows are being broken. They're smashing windows when they're being assaulted and when people are blocking traffic and confronting the ICE agents. They have a right to do their jobs. They have a right to defend themselves. Every court in this country has upheld that, and even some of the lawsuits that Minnesota has filed just in a few days have been tossed out. Yesterday, you had the mayor saying that 6 prosecutors from the local U.S. Attorney's Office walked off the job because of this. And then we had Pam Bondi come out last night and say, no, they were fired. They disagreed with the policy, and they wanted some paid vacation for this or that, and they just cut them loose. They've got to have the right team to support the president on this directive, which is following our federal laws, and the United States citizens voted for every bit of this. This is what we voted for in 2024. The president is doing his duty. The governor is not doing his duty, and he's trying to make some kind of weird stand. He encouraged his own citizens last night to go out and he didn't use the word confront, but he said to go and video and document what ICE is doing, implying that they have some right to make prosecutions in their state against these federal agents. They don't have that right. The Supremacy Clause reigns. They can't go after these federal agents for doing their job under the law. They cannot do it. That doesn't exist, but he's talking to his foolish, illiterate people that are whipped up into rage, and they're out in the streets again today creating the spectacle that is on the news. Now, Caroline Levitt did the president's news briefing earlier. Let me get this pulled up. And, boy, she blistered some bedwetting reporter who, by the way, had some really jacked up teeth. I would recommend him to Alabama Dental, alabamadental.com. But he had this, "Are you still beating your wife?" type question for Caroline Levitt. And I don't know if I've ever seen a live decapitation in the White House briefing room, but it happened. This guy's facial expression when she lit into him should be the thing of memes going forward if people knew this moment. Let me just play the audio version of it and listen.
Thanks, Caroline. Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 U.S. citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist.
She is the best I've ever seen in that job. That's not an exaggeration. I was a fan of Tony Snow. I've seen some incompetent people in that role over the years. That's a very visible role with all presidents. But I'm telling you, she is on her feet in a command of the facts, and she's not afraid of these morons that are sitting there doing activism in politics. The guy's literally got a seat in the White House and said that the ICE agents acted irresponsibly and recklessly, and there's no evidence of that. They're just not. That's an opinion from the American left because of their distorted political views, and she tore him a new one. I mean, it was a big one. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, double wide, new butthole this afternoon, and that was a thing to behold. I had to at least share that among the many sound bites that we have to go after this afternoon. Let me play this for you too. So then there was, even when it's not these made up street confrontations and all this stuff, there was the situation at a high school in Minnesota where the kids, and that's fine, kids want to feel like they're involved in their times, and this kid decided these kids decided they were going to go do a walkout. Now let's be real, everybody, we've all been to high school. A walkout's really about just getting out of class, isn't it? These kids aren't old enough to have any deep convictions about anything. This isn't a peace movement that they've suddenly embraced. They're not coming of age at 17 or 18 years old. They're still squishing pimples and don't know which end is up. So they're going to stage a walkout out of solidarity with the Somalians. The problem was Somali tribalism got in the way, and in the middle of their walkout, while they're even still on the porch, chaos reigned, and they started beating the hell out of each other. There's no ICE agent anywhere near here. For the record, ICE was not on the scene. Now, by the way, it went on forever, and it's just annoying to listen to. It wasn't white versus black. It wasn't some kids that were pro-ICE versus kids that might have been anti-ICE. It was the same kids just fighting with each other because kids are idiots, and that's what they did. And so the whole town, the tension in their town and in their state is being brought up by their poor leaders. Now, there's the question today, and we had a caller about this yesterday, about the Insurrection Act. I've got some facts for you about how that's been used in the past and what some of the circumstances here are that might give the president an opportunity to evoke the Insurrection Act, which he said today that he may very much do. We'll wait and see. That's a card he's holding, I'm sure, and we'll explain what that means, what it allows the president to do to help get a handle on this city that is spun out of control. And again, this is being fomented by their leadership, and their leadership is withdrawing the police from the scene to allow the violence to occur so they can turn around and get on camera and complain about the violence. There's so much hypocrisy here. We'll get into it one thing at a time. 545-9950 is the phone number. Danny Knowles is with the Knowles Group, lifelong friend of mine. They've got an excellent show on the weekend. Sometimes I'm able to catch it when I'm out and about, but they have their team come in and just answer questions, talk about scenarios. I was listening to Danny talk about a person that called up that was scared of the stock market, and when they dug further, it's because they'd always tried to handle their own investments and didn't do well. And that's kind of the whole point. You need real strong, sound advice. For example, today the markets have been up close to 400 points. At one point, it's been a good day on some trade news and the prospect that we're not going to have some outbreak of war with Iran. Those things have buoyed the markets today. We'll keep watching it toward the close. But again, I like watching the day-to-day stock market sometimes because it reveals things in our headlines. Danny and his team don't need to pay attention to that because they've got the long-term strategies for the funds that they choose and invest in that have proven themselves over a period of time enough to know that in the future, no matter what happens, these stocks are positioned to continue to grow on the averages. That's how you grow your money in a smart way. Let Danny and his team talk to you. They're not one of these outfits because I've turned people down over the years that wanted to come onto the show, and they'd say things like, I remember this one guy, he was just so haughty about it. He goes, well, I'm not really interested in any of your listeners that don't already have at least $500,000 to invest. And that told me two things. One, he was arrogant. He's working off percentages, and he's looking at his cut before anything else. And how are people supposed to get to 500? This is exactly what Danny told me. I said, Danny, do you have a cutoff? He said, no. He said, how are people supposed to get to $500,000 if they don't have good advisors? I'm here to advise. So take what you got to Danny, whether you're sitting on a pile because you worked your whole life and you want a better return, or you're starting out. Sometimes you got to start over. You got wiped out by something in life and you want things to get back on track. Let them help. It's theknowlesgroup.com, N-O-L-E-S, theknowlesgroup.com. Back here in just a minute. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. All right, y'all, Birmingham Broker next up here on the show, bhambroker.com, bhambroker.com. That's Craig and Keith. Y'all, this is just the smart way to do it. If you've got a car deal to do this year or anytime, let Birmingham Broker sell it for you. They'll handle the deal. They're going to broker that car out into the world and get this done for you. It is so smart. You get a retail check, not a wholesale check when they're dealing with your vehicle, and they know what it's worth. They know what the market will bear. They have buyers on the hook. We have talked about this a whole lot. At the end of the year last year, Craig was reaching out to us and just telling us that they've got buyers lined up looking for certain vehicles, and inventory was running low, and he needed some people to bring their cars down there so he could get them sold. That means the deals can go quicker, and they'll do it right, get you top dollar. They do all the work. I love it. I'll never trade a different way again. Y'all, it is Birmingham Broker, bhambroker.com, bhambroker.com. All right, man, do we have things in the news? Let's do some international. No, I said I was going to talk about insurrection. So just real quick, many of you have heard the term because it was thrown around loosely by the American left just to get political points on Trump, and that failed. What's happening even in Minnesota pales in comparison to this January 6th nonsense. This is, for example, the January 6th protesters were unorganized, and they didn't have a leader, and they didn't have weapons, and they didn't have a plan. These folks taking on the federal government in Minneapolis have leadership in Tim Walz and Jacob Fry. They are organized. They are trained. They're bringing weapons, and they're engaged in direct violence against the federal government. It's not just ICE agents. They're taking on the federal government. So the idea of the Insurrection Act, which Trump has posted about, saying that he's very much willing to impose it if they can't get it under control in Minnesota, has been used quite frequently by previous presidents, including the aforementioned John Kennedy during the civil rights era here in the United States. It's there so that if needed be, you can't. Posse comitatus is the policy that keeps the law that keeps the American government from using military troops inside the country. The exception is during a time of insurrection, and they're actually clear definitions for what that means. What is an insurrection? So we'll go through some of that when we come back. How much has it been used? What is it? What circumstances in the past and in the law have dictated that presidents can declare an insurrection and go put it down? We're getting close to that point, especially after the last 48 hours. Back here in just a minute, Leland Live, Talk 99.5. All right, let's get back at it. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. This is the perfect weather to do what I call the window test, where you just stand next to windows and you feel that draft. That is, if you feel any cold air coming in, that is warm air going out. Your house is really, all things really exchange heat. And when you're losing heat, you're gaining cold air. Your system has to work twice as hard. That means your bills go up. All you got to do is get your windows fixed. EcoView has the kind of products that they stand so solidly behind that they say they can save you 35% on your heating and cooling. I'd take them up on it. There's a long-term payback just in the energy savings. Could be some tax deductibles or write-offs available to you on your taxes. Depends on what your situation is and what the new laws are for this year. But look into it and let Becky Jackson's team come and do it. They cover everything they do. When they're on site, all their workers are covered by the proper workers' comp policies, all that dangerous work, sometimes getting on ladders and doing this kind of thing. They've got warranties that extend out on the products after they're gone, on their functionality, glass break warranties. They just do everything right so you can feel peaceful about your decision. Not only that, their windows come in so many architectural styles that there's probably something that suits your home very, very well that you're going to love, going to show off. Then there are the ancillary things like, hey, you can open and close your windows now. Some of those old school windows get stuck, they break, they get painted shut. Get that out of your life, improve your home, invest in your home, and get some payback with ecoviewwindows.com. Reach out to them and let them come look at what you've got going on. And try that window test. Go and stand next to your windows, usually with bare skin. You can feel it. That's money out the window, literally. ecoviewwindows.com, ecoviewwindows.com. Well, we have some positive stuff to get into today, too, and I'll be into getting into some of those stories here in just a little bit. But we, as we got to the bottom of last hour, we were talking about this concept of the Insurrection Act. So let's break that down. I'm of two minds, and it's good when I'm like this because I can debate both sides in my mind. Politically, it sort of feeds into the leftist narrative of Trump as an authoritarian. And I think that's what they're trying to provoke is a military action here in the United States, or a military response, the left being hypocrites that they are. In other words, they'll complain, this Mayor Fry will complain in a news conference about the numbers of ICE agents and federal agents on the ground in their city. And why are we being picked on? Well, it's because they're a sanctuary city. They're fighting the authorities. They're not assisting in the security apparatus. So the feds have to protect themselves and send reinforcements to execute their mission. If they would just cooperate, if this goofy mayor would just turn over the criminals that are in his system. One of the ones, the ICE had to shoot somebody last night. It was 3-on-1. 3 guys attacked an agent that they were trying to apprehend. This guy turns out to be a straight illegal immigrant criminal. He picked up a snow shovel, tried to fight with the agent with it. The agent popped him in the leg. He's going to be fine. We just saw a picture of him smiling in the hospital. And then this mayor will sit there and say, the vast majority of the shootings this year alone in Minneapolis have been from ICE agents. You know why? That's because it's only January 15th. There have been 3 shootings. 2 of them were ICE agents defending themselves, and one was probably par for the course for the city. What I think is crazy about this situation is that even though they're provoking their own people to fight with ICE, then pretending to be for a peaceful protest, but the people they're provoking, I think, are more nuts than Mayor Fry or the governor really realizes. They're so uncontrollable and spun out in life and with their ideas and with their mental health that they're capable of doing anything. There could be absolute violence committed by these people, and more blood is going to be on the hands of this governor and this mayor. Now, citizens in Minnesota and Minneapolis are not 100% for this, and you're seeing more and more of those folks speaking out, and they don't want to see their city burn again. It's the same 2 ass clowns that are running the shop that allowed things to spin out of control in 2020. And the left believes it got a lot of political traction out of that. I don't think so. I think they just flat stole the election. By the way, there's stories about election rigging in the news today, too. We may have a chance to get to those later. But back to insurrection. So there's a political danger, I guess you would say, and Trump's usually not very sensitive to those things. And but we do have the midterms coming, and a provocative incident on either side could lead to consequences that could be felt in the midterms. And that's really what a lot of this is about. These leftists don't care about these people they're in the streets fighting for. They don't care about those people. They care about their political power. They're seeing their political house of cards be deconstructed all over the country with their funding mechanisms, this waste and fraud. This clown of a governor comes out last night lecturing the country on saying that they're going after people of color. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. ICE isn't targeting people based on their color. They're targeting people based on their illegal status. Now, why is it that all those people with the legal status happen to be, quote, people of color as opposed to people of no color? It's because that's who Biden let in. That's who they targeted and facilitated to come here. They recruited people of color and rammed them into our society on purpose. It was their plan. The Biden administration, the Democrat Party chose the race of these illegals, not ICE. ICE just has a job to do, and it says, look, if you're here illegally, no matter where you're from, you got to go. And they got to go. And they're going because it's still happening. And that mission is not going to stop. It won't stop for the next 3 years anyway. Now, let's go back to insurrection. So let's assume it's time. And a lot people that support the president are finally saying it's time. I think the biggest support for that would be because this could spiral out of control and become a problem for the whole country. You're talking about the union being under threat if a state gets so incalcitrant that they try to secede from the rest of the country. Well, then you got what happened in the run-up to the Civil War all over again. Perhaps it'll be other of these blue states deciding they want to be their own country. Personally, I wouldn't have any problem with it. I would trade Minnesota with Canada for maybe Alberta province. We could just take Alberta, connect it to, I could work it out for y'all. We could connect it to Montana, make it North Montana, and or they could still be called Alberta, and they could have these morons in Minnesota, and that'd be it. But the concept that this could gain life, there could be an incendiary incident that gets, again, blown out of context and allowed this to domino through the country, then you've got a loss of control here in the nation. The rest of the nation's going about their business. Kids are going to school. People are going to work. The economy's going crazy. There were new trade deals announced today. Everything's positive in those directions. But Tim Walz desperately needs to distract from this because the corruption probes are mounting. The evidence is continuing to get volume despite these staged things out in the streets. We know who stole the money. We know where the money went. These politicians are all guilty as hell, and I think they're going to be arrested over it. So insurrection, let me focus. I found a sheet with some stats on it about insurrection. How often has it been used? A lot more than I would have even perceived that it had been. It's been evoked 30 times in our country's history by 17 different presidents. And that's without Trump becoming the 18th. That is, by percentage, 37% of American presidents have at some point in this country's history, after 250 years, had to evoke the Insurrection Act to put down rebellions that spring up in certain places in the country. Rebellions, uprisings. There are some examples of when it's been used in the past. I'll just read from my list here. Armed groups that have openly defied federal law. Birmingham in the 1960s. You had bombs going off, buses being bombed, churches being blown up, people being snatched from their homes and beaten in the streets. Very similar stuff to what we're seeing right now. They threw a bottle of piss on an ICE agent yesterday through the window of his car. Last night, they went into a federal vehicle, snatched the door open, and got a gun vault. It was an interior gun vault, got it out. They struggled to get it open, but eventually got it open. They found sensitive files with information on them that could expose some of the targets of the raids and the officers involved in that in an attempt to dox the officers. These people have crossed so many lines. They've clearly met the standard of previous rebellions and insurrections in the country. When state or local authorities could not or would not assist in putting down the rebellion. In that case, that's exactly what we're dealing with in Minneapolis. They won't do it. They won't let the police participate in keeping the public calm. They're just standing back and allowing it to continue to boil. And that's when the feds have an obligation under the Insurrection Act to step in. But it's up to the president to coordinate it. It's his sole decision, and it always has been with every president before Donald Trump. When you have violence that is, or what's called organized resistance, where they've threatened authority and threatened the overthrow of the government, these people are yelling about the overthrow of the government in the streets, yelling for murder, calling for more arms to be used. It says here as well, courts were blocked, taxes couldn't be collected, officials had been attacked. We've seen some similar stuff like that where federal buildings have been surrounded. They're trying to enter private businesses where they think ICE agencies are staying. So it's full on, and it meets the test. So whether it's a legal judgment, if you're following this stuff at home in the play-at-home version of the game, the president, the law's on his side, history's on his side, the circumstances are on his side. Every definition of all the precedent that's been set over the Insurrection Act is there. It's right there. Then you had the sort of media version of it, the optics of it. If you do send the feds in, it's going to get ugly. It just is. I said that after Trump won the election. These deportations will get ugly, and we have to have the stomach to watch this kind of stuff happen if we're going to correct these problems. And by the way, I've got statistics, and I'll probably get to those later in the show, that show fentanyl use, housing numbers, crime numbers that are, when you look at a line chart, they're absolutely following immigration in this country. In other words, as the illegal immigrant population rose, these numbers rose. Fentanyl deaths, for one, spiked beginning in 2014. Anybody want to look at who the president was in 2014? Hussein. And he started opening up the gates, and that's when he started with all this DACA nonsense, giving them cover to come across the border. At the time, it was mostly Mexicans and maybe some Guatemalans. And then it became the world. That was the opening salvo. And you can track fentanyl deaths with the rise in the immigrant population. And now that they've been deported and the border's been secured, fentanyl deaths are dropping back down close to those 2014 levels. Believe that or not. And I can go through that. I can nerd out on you with the statistics on it. So the reverse engineering has been healthy for the country. You've got to allow immigration. You need to do it legally and properly, and we need to do it with assimilation and with the best intent for the future of the country. But what we have right now is madness, and these people in Minnesota are protecting their political turf. I think they're protecting their own backsides from literal prosecution. And at some point, Trump may have to turn his attention to this issue. The man's been a little busy, though. We're dealing with Iran and Venezuela and Cuba and China and Greenland and a lot of international stuff, economic deals, some of which are coming across today, which are stunning. And so I would want him to ignore Minnesota for a while and let this flame out. I don't think it's a political problem for the president, even though he has the legal authority. But when he decides to put it down, one of the best arguments for going ahead and doing it is stopping the spread. You just snuff this thing out where it is. It's like one of these fires out in California. This is a spark that clearly leftists, that goober reporter that we played the soundbite from in the news and the White House today, sympathizers all over the country would love for this to spread. They would love for the chaos to reign so that the success of the second term of the Trump administration to be clouded with this stuff, especially here in the midterms. So we'll see what the White House decides to do. It's the president's decision. And the way the president moves, he could do it overnight. Now, he's already said that he's willing to do it. It's up to the governor and the mayor to get this under control. And they've got the power to do it. I don't think they want to. You heard the speech last night. Man, do we have things happening in the world today to talk about. Let's talk about Monster Liner real quick. This is an incredible product. I really think this is one of the coolest inventions for do-it-yourselfers in a long time. Now, some of y'all are good at painting inside your house. Maybe you painted outside your house. Maybe you like to spray paint things every now and then. There's a challenge when it comes to outdoor things, particularly metallic things. You can't spray that with a can of spray paint. It doesn't look right. You can't really, I didn't know there was even the concept of rolling paint onto some of these kind of things, but sure enough, there's a paint manufacturer in Coleman County, been at it for almost a century. Eric's family's almost been in the paint supply business for almost a century. They supply paint to industries, durable paint that adheres and protects. And they decided to create a consumer product that the rest of us can use to paint our own things, which means if you got some junker car or truck or off-roader or something, and you're just not going to pay somebody thousands of dollars to paint it with the spray gun, you can paint it yourself with this roll-on technique. You can do it. Looks good, lasts, it's very durable, easy to use, very affordable, and they make it right here in Alabama. So look into it. If you got a boat trailer, if you got a utility trailer, anything really that sits outside and needs some love and care and some protection, reach out to Monster Liner and let them send you. First, they can send you some samples. You pick some colors you think you're interested in so you can look at those. But when you're ready, they'll send you the whole kit. And when they send you the kit, it's everything you need. It's all in that box. It's called Monster Liner, MONSTALINER, MonsterLiner.com. Leland Live back here in just a minute. All right, y'all, 254, Leland Live Talk 99.5. Let's talk more about your home and keeping up with things on your home. I think all the fall leaves are finally gone. You may even have ice in your gutters by now with this frozen weather. But let Gutter Cap come on out and take a look at your situation and get you fixed up once and for all so those gutters are protected. Your home is protected. Gutters protect your home from all that moving water. And if they're full of leaves and gunk, well, you know how bad that can get. Gutter Cap's going to come over if you give them a ring and get them started, and they're going to clean all the stuff that's in there now out. You don't need to pay somebody to do that. Then they're going to make sure the gutters are right, and they're going to go all over your house and make sure nothing has pulled loose. Everything's still good. The seams are good. Then they put their patented all aluminum system on your house, and you don't ever have to think about this issue again. You're not getting back on a ladder. You're not paying somebody else to get back on a ladder. You're not dealing with clogs and rot and problems. It's done. Water comes down your roof, flows away like it's supposed to. All is good. This is the patented all aluminum system. It's just a brilliant design, which is why they patented it. And in my opinion, every other gutter cover company is imitating this product. This is Gutter Cap, the one and only Gutter Cap. They're giving 45% off right now at Gutter Cap, so I'd take them up on it. Gutter Cap of Birmingham, get them on over and take advantage of that 45% off. They bring that deal from time to time, and that's off their main retail price, and let them give you take some measurements and give you a bid and get this done. GutterCapBirmingham.com. One more time, GutterCapBirmingham.com. Well, on the positive side of all the news today, the president just about an hour ago announced, AJ, I always forget to keep turning this central camera back on. Y'all see me? You see me? The president just announced a new trade deal with Taiwan. And this is against the backdrop of the prospect that the Supreme Court could have an adverse ruling any day now that upends the president's tariff strategy. That's just going to be calamity. And I've had people ask, well, what's the plan if they do that? I have no idea. I would imagine Trump's team's smart enough to have a backup, but what they tell us is it would be just devastating to the economy, to the American people, to these deals, to manufacturing, and all the stuff, all the positive things that have come from the strategy. By the way, just economically, the arguments against the tariff approach were about how it would cause instant inflation and crash the economy. None of that's happened. Now, long term, it might, but what we've done is just equalize the tariffs, balance out the trade, and put it back on a fair footing for the United States using the tariffs as a weapon. And so today, Taiwan comes in. Taiwan's a hugely important country, not only but mainly because of the semiconductor business, because of their relationship with China and trying to control that whole region. They've been a loyal business partner over the years and do excellent manufacturing and work. And they've agreed to a $250 billion to America's benefit, $250 billion investment here in the United States. How about that? So the Trump team taking another little small victory lap in the area of the economy. There's been a lot of economic news. Let me take a quick look at the markets as we head toward the close and see what's happening right now. It's been a relatively update on the markets, 269 at the moment. At one point today, I looked down and I think we're close to 400. That's all positive news. The fundamentals are there, but the uncertainty still stays there when you've got the Iran situation and some of this international trade. But slowly, we're kind of becoming used to, I think psychologically as a country, we're becoming used to the rhythm of all that. Trump's always going to be playing offense, provoking, getting the best interest for the country, keeping things on a full court press. And it might have been a shock to the system 12 months ago, but this is our pace now. And so investors kind of calm down, look at the fundamentals. The fundamentals are strong. There's almost no way to look at it other than we have turned a corner. Are we there? We're not there, but we're getting there. And we're getting there on a pace that's very healthy and should be good for our wallets in the coming months. I'm telling you, soon we'll see in our tax season, folks are going to feel a little emboldened when the tax load is lighter. Maybe the rebate checks are higher. You're seeing those psychological barriers that are these gas prices up on the billboards when you're driving around. Those are coming down. Grocery store feels a little better. Restaurant going out to eat prices have kind of flattened out. They're a little bit higher than they were last quarter, but they're kind of considering what things were and how shocking everything seemed to be for a while. We're starting to get some footing again, and that feels good. So some positive news in the middle of every other crazy thing that's going on in our world this afternoon. We'll be back. Here's the 1819 news, 545-9950 if you want to get on the show. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. Y'all stay tuned.